issues, she had to stay in that relationship. And in fact, when we finally met, she had to live for about a 30-day period in the United States illegally because of immigration issues. And it was during that period that we were kind of living in fear that nothing would happen to her that draw attention to her, because we were in the process of getting married. But because of issues related to her own immigration, she had to stay in an unhealthy relationship. She had to live in fear for a 30-day period because of the fear of being deported during that time frame. But what we found in the experience for her personally was the system was so complicated. She had to get legal assistance, which cost her thousands of dollars through the years. It took her 5 years to finally get her temporary green card. It took her additional 2 more years to get her permanent green card. 17 years later, she's now finally a citizen in the last year. But that has been an arduous process for us, and it's cost us, quite frankly, thousands of dollars. And had we not been people of a certain socioeconomic level with a certain access to different networks of people, it would have been a near impossible process. So for me, it's a personal issue. It's one that we've experienced firsthand, and we just find that the process is not promoting, I think, ultimately what members of Congress want, which is a system that is healthy, that's going to promote the welfare of not only individuals, but the interests of our nation.
Well, I don't know if you can tell this by looking at me, but I'm a son of immigrants. So it's a personal issue in that sense that my parents came because of immigration reform in 1965. Secondly, I am a child of God, and those two identities really compel me to understand the way we interact and have the confidence and the courage to welcome the stranger and to love the other. It's compelling in my community of faith, and it's, in fact, I think the push for immigration reform is, and the impetus to fight for immigration reform comes from my faith. I don't think that we can be a Bible-believing, embodied followers of Jesus without promoting love for the stranger. And so I think it makes us more credible witnesses of the gospel. It creates communities that are not monochromatic, that are willing to reach across lines of class and race. And I believe it's the only way that we as the community of faith become credible. And so I think immigration reform is necessary for communities of faith to remain vibrant.
The pastor has just done a good job of articulating why I personally am so driven to this, and he mentioned being credible. I realized that I personally was not credible. I'm a person of faith, and yet I was not allowing my faith to inform how I responded to immigrants. I've worked with refugees for many, many years, for over 15 years. Refugees are a very specific type of immigrant, and they enter our country with legal status, and I hid behind that. I rested in that and chose to keep other immigrants at a distance because I wasn't comfortable with that. And yet, as I wrestled with my faith on that, I realized that, hey, the things in my faith that are calling me to serve refugees, they're the same things that should be affecting my attitude towards other immigrants, regardless of what their status is. And most notably, I had to deal with my concept of justice. I grew up with a strong sense of justice, and I was uncomfortable with the fact that some people were not in line with certain laws. But I realized that I was allowing those laws to define my sense of justice. As a person of faith, ultimately, my definition of justice has to come from my God. And I had to look at the history of our country and realize, hey, there's been a lot of laws that weren't just and that needed to change. And so coming to that determination really encouraged me to engage the issue of immigration reform and to look more specifically at the laws and ask myself, hey, are these laws just? And are they really fulfilling the ideals of our country? Ultimately, I had to come to terms with the fact that, if we ignore immigration, if we turn a blind eye to immigration, essentially we're turning a blind eye to ourselves, because this whole country was founded on immigration. And if we stop embracing that and stop embracing the ideals that founded it, then really we're ignoring ourselves. And I knew that I personally had to change.